Right now, we have on with us Ron Cohen. He is running for United States Congress in District 17. He's a strong candidate, folks. I looked at his website. It's not your typical politician website, okay? It has information about where he stands, what he believes, his background, and how you can connect with him. And really, I want to just share with you a few little spaces which I find are important. You know, I believe family is at the core of everything that we are as a nation, and the media, different powers that be are trying to erode that very, very important piece of our country. And guess what Ron starts out with on his website? It's fabulous. It says, Ron is a husband, a father of 2, grandfather of 3. He's a certified public accountant since 1984, so he's been in business quite a long time. He's a partner in a prominent regional CPA firm, which is fabulous. He has a strong background. He and his wife live and work in Fremont, California. They have lived in the Bay Area since 1984. He was born and raised in the Chicago area and worked in San Diego in the early 80s. Now, this comes from his website. It says, quote, he feels most politicians simply, quote, kick the can down the road, end quote, because real deficit reduction requires hard choices that are politically unpopular. Welcome to the Erin Cruz Show, Ron. I mean, that right there, it says it all as far as I'm concerned.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having me on here. Yes, being a CPA, I've spent 37 years following tax law, helping out clients and so forth. And I started to figure out, what's this all about? How does it work? And I caught on to the work of Ron Paul and now my hero, Rand Paul, and looking at the monetary policy, deficits, and then went off into more social issues, abortion, immigration, and so forth. And, you know, I think we're in for trouble, both financially and morally, if we don't take some action. So I decided, I'm 59 years old. If I'm going to run, I should. And we filed the papers and got the support of the local Republican Party. And we're voting, and we were running here in the 17th district. It's a tough district for Republicans, but that doesn't matter. There's a story to be told about fiscal and social conservatism that is timeless, and right. I'm here to tell it.
Right. I mean, there you hit the nail on the head. I just want to make a note about that, because that's where it's at, I believe, as well, is that, you know, those values don't go out of style, and they're tried and true, those conservative values. And, you know, in the House of Representatives, that's where every bill that's financially based starts. We
right.
need people who understand and really can help serve the people, because right now what we have up there, those people are not serving the people. You can serve the people and do the good work that needs to be done. Because, you know, I was looking at your website. You have a lot of perspective on the financial aspects of some of the budget issues and other things. Where do you think that you can help out and really make impact from your CPA background? Because it sounds like, I mean, being a CPA, you know the law side of, you know, everything as well as just the finance. So where do you think you can make the most impact?
Well, there's a couple of angles that come at it. One, I think the monetary system is broken.
Right.
Every dollar bill earns interest, and it doesn't have to be Thomas Edison and Ron Paul and Dennis Kucinich over the years have proposed new systems, and we haven't adopted it basically because I think the bankers are pushing and making money off the current system that has to have exponential growth in debt endlessly to survive, and it's not going to work. It all falls apart in about 5 years, in my view. Something came out yesterday saying what's baked into the numbers is a federal deficit of $99 trillion by 2040. That will be 150% of GDP, and we'll all be debt slaves, and our children will suffer. I have 3 grandchildren, and I want them to put on my tombstone, I tried. So I'm running.
I want to put on your tombstone, you did. You took action. And because that's what you're doing right now. And I don't want to talk morbidly about your death stone, but I think that your tombstone. But I think the bigger thing is this, is that we as people, as parents, as grandparents, I'm not a grandparent yet, but, as patriots, it's our duty. And if we're called to serve and lead, and here you have this expertise that you could put to good work. But where do you stand on, say, auditing the Fed?
Oh, absolutely. The Federal Reserve is a socialist way of handling the money system, where you have a unelected group of bankers whose it was originally just set up to make sure that there was liquidity in the money system, so that when the farmers harvested their crop, they could get paid. There'd be enough money floating around. And now, as we all see, every 3 months or so, there's a big meeting, and they talk about the interest rates, and because now they
strike fear in different financial areas to, I see, pad their own pockets in some ways. They manipulate
the
via their platform.
Financial services part of the economy is almost 40%. It used to be 10%. The financial services part of the economy is supposed to be, so there's a bank that works.
Right.
There's money floating around. The ATM machines work. Now we have people who just make money off of the money flows. And that, as Ron Paul says, if everybody sits around looking at little colors flash around on their internet games and just trying to make a spread off of somebody else's money, that's not a survivable economy. And I think that is where we're going. And as a tax guy, as a CPA, as I often say, look into the eyes of your children and grandchildren. We're going to leave them tied down with an anchor of debt. It's just endless money being printed. There's $37 billion of new paper money being printed every day to keep this thing going. And there's even more computer money being created every day. And the U.S. and the federal government certainly are technically insolvent. That means that everything's not going to stop tomorrow, because we all need money and we all need food and we all get paid and transactions happen. But if you were to today say, pay off all your debt, federal government, it's impossible. That there's no equity left. And that wasn't the case until about the early 80s. The U.S. was a net creditor country with a balance sheet that right. had equity in it. And now it's completely upside down. And that's why China, Russia, and India are accumulating gold, because they are they know the day's coming when the U.S. dollar is no longer the reserve currency of the world, and they're going to have to turn to something new, backed by something with intrinsic value, and they're hoping that gold kind of comes into that. So as we look at so to answer your question directly, Rand Paul in the last, and we just had a budget bill pass for $800 billion today. I mean, we're going to have a $1.3 trillion deficit for the fiscal year ending in a few weeks. And as Rand Paul said back in January in the last budget, the Republicans would howl to the moon about Democratic deficits. And now that Mr. Trump is in and we're Republicans, it's okay. In fact, they're even bigger. And it's not okay. The deficits in the monetary system are a problem that started back with Richard Nixon when he left gold as a tie, some last tie into the U.S. dollar. And it's been growing and growing and growing into a problem. And there will become a moment when the markets, especially the bond market, the bond market's 3 times bigger than the stock market. Mm-hmm. And there'll be a moment when those bond holders say, I'm not going to get paid. And right. then there'll be cataclysm, and we're going to have what has not happened since 1776. We will have a U.S. bond default, either in the Social Security area, Medicare area, or in the U.S. Treasury bonds. And the fear and panic that will come about will be something we've never seen. Right now, I support Donald Trump. He knows all this. Right. There's no answer to it.
Right, because, what I look at as a citizen, and I'm a mother, and I see what Obama did over 8 years. Pretty much stripped our military, pretty much eroded just about everything he could. He poured a bunch of money in with the stimulus, of course, that started at the end of Bush, and obviously Obama ran with it and then some. So they did the stimulus package, but they pretty much threw money at nothing. Not a lot came out of it. They did a whole bunch of programs like the solar program, cash for clunkers. They did a whole bunch of different things under that administration. But the point is this: he allowed our country to get to the space where on some level, we have to spend actual good money and get this country back on track, like investing in the military and other things, peace through strength. But at what point does that stop? Where do you take that irresponsibility of spending money? Money we have to we're printing from nowhere, and get those budgets under control, because it's like they've got a blank paycheck, and they can just write it out to all their buddies.
Yeah, well, Mr. Trump, President Trump, who I fully support, I've read various things, and through the party, I hear things. They've made the tactical decision that they have to try to outgrow it. In fact, to grow the economy so big that the deficits get funded and come back under control. Right. And literally, he has no other choice because of the structure of our monetary system. But because of the demographics, because of so many baby boomers and so forth retiring, I believe in around 2025, the doors fall off the car. And the moment of truth, again, will be when the bond market, it's a boring thing. You never hear about it. But when it gets scared, it destroys countries. Bill Clinton used to say, and his advisors used to say, I wish I could come back as the bond market because you can bully everyone. And that's because that is the backbone of the currency, that bonds get issued, get paid. The federal deficit goes back to Andrew Jackson. There was $30,000 of federal deficit when he got it done. He was trying to get to zero, and he didn't make it. We are still paying interest on that refinanced debt today, which is now up to $21 trillion, heading towards $99 trillion by 2040. And, we can talk all about politics and tax things and get into the details. But in my view, they're Ponzi schemes. It's not going to work. It'll be okay for a few more years. But that's not our job as people running for office and people who truly understand long-term policy.
Long-term policy, because that's, important. Now, where do you stand on flat tax, on fair tax, these sorts of issues? I know Trump has opened to. They just finished their tax plan, which I think is. And they passed a bill. It's a wonderful start, right?
Yeah.
It's a great starting space, but we really have to get to the point where Congress is serving the people and working out a less burdensome system.
Yeah. Well, Rand Paul proposed last year. He says we have to get to the point where we're spending what comes in, and he had a 5-10-year plan whereby shaving little bits off all these departments that you could actually get. Of course, he was wholly ignored by both parties, I'm sorry to say. He was completely ignored. And the fair tax...
They don't want solutions is what it comes down to. And they don't want their abilities cut.
Yeah, well, the bankers...
Or the checkbook taken away.
Yeah, well, the bankers, the financial communities, Goldman Sachs, the Bank of Americas, the Merrill Lynch's, they make money off of this huge movement of funds and treasury bonds being issued and being sold and being packaged and stock buybacks. Stock buybacks, I digress a little bit, are a sin against nature. They were illegal up until Ronald Reagan came in. Ronald Reagan allowed him, thinking, hey, this is a nice little device that can solve a few little problems. Do you know who the biggest buyer of stocks have been since 2008? Stock buyback buyers, not individuals, not companies. I mean, companies they're buying, not a company buying someone else's stock, but a company buying their own stock. So our entire stock market is being driven by that hot money coming in by, in the worst cases, corporations who are sound going out and borrowing money in these low interest rates environments, often in other countries, bringing it in and buying their own stock, driving up prices, making your 401k look good, and you go, isn't this great? Well, it's not. It's completely manipulated. So we have to, we have to get to, in terms of the fair tax, I wanted to mention, big supporter for years. And as one lobbyist told me, the problem is a fair tax, which makes wonderful sense to me, will never pass unless the president is there pushing 3 times a day on the phone all night, trying to get it passed. And even Republican presidential candidates have refused to put their weight behind the fair tax. So as much as I intellectually love it, it's not going to happen until some president makes it their goal.
Right, right. And now, and you're a CPA, so this hits close to home. Where do you stand on the position of making the tax, because our tax law is just huge. You know that. You're battling with it every day as you prepare returns and you do tax planning and what have you. But simplifying the tax law, getting it to the point where individuals can manage their taxes themselves and all of that, because Trump talked about that during his campaign, but I don't think that he can do that currently unless he were to do another tax reform.
Yeah. So from a policy standpoint, it was great. We reduced the corporate rate from 35% down to a flat 21. That had to be done. We were losing all over the world by comparison. Had to be done. People don't understand how many small business jobs are directly connected to people working for large corporations. They don't understand that. And so but in terms of the actual mechanism of tax, it's horrible. It's just every time they say they're going to simplify it, then it goes into the sausage machine that's the lawmaking process. And we laugh about it as CPAs and tax lawyers. Yeah, go ahead, simplify, please. It's another, another 20
please help, because
because I'll be the only one who reads it and understands it for most people. So we love complexity. We love if there's, somebody got away with something, so let's make a rule, and that rule will create a form, and that form will have 21 lines, and let's make 10 million, 20 million people have to fill out that form. It's the road to hell.
Well, it is, and it's that's how government operates, right? More government breeds more government breeds more government. It's not serving the people.
And when I go to audits with the IRS agents, they don't understand it. I'm usually, as a guy who's been in this for 37 years, I'm usually teaching the auditor. The auditor will say, well, what about this, this, and this? It's on my checklist. Yes, but do you know what that means on your check? No, well, that means this, and here's, and so because I'm an older guy, I end up teaching the auditors.
Well, you know the background. You know where it's come from, how it's evolved, where it's at currently, because history really is where it's at, and understanding these things. And I think that if flat tax, fair tax, whatever makes sense to serve the people, to be able to operate reduced and, how do I want to say it, reduced size and scope of government. We want the size of government to come down. We don't want it to bloat itself up. So whatever it can do to help condense itself to be more efficient and operational, because that's not what we've been seeing for generations. It just grows and grows and grows and grows, and we're at a point where we can't continue to sustain this growth, and that's what I'm getting from.
I'm sorry. Yeah, the studies I've shown show that say that the U.S. population spends $600 billion a year doing their taxes, either H&R Block or TurboTax or hiring someone like me or what. What an incredible way! That's the entire gross domestic product of, I don't know, 60% of the rest of the world that we are wasting doing our taxes. In board meetings, this is well tested. In board meetings, they spend 30% of their time talking about tax strategies, not how to make their product better, not how to make their employees more productive, but tax strategies with tall, skinny tax attorneys.
Now, this is not how to get out of paying what they have to pay. This is about how to be able to operate their company in the most efficient way, retain as much as they can of their income so they can expand, hire more people and everything else. They don't want to spend money they don't necessarily have to, giving it to the government if they can, be smart about the laws and everything that's out there. People need to get that straight. The government didn't work for that money.
That's right. I mean, I see startup after startup, and they work with the big law firms, and they come to me, and they have 300 pages of beautiful tax documents and stock options, this and intercompany transactions, and they've set up a foreign subsidiary in Singapore, and the company goes under in 6 months. And you talk to the guy and says, I got my head so much into with these attorneys and all these plans, I really forgot about my product and my customer, and I failed. And that's a quasi-socialistic system where you spend your time and energy focusing on working the system as opposed to creating independent wealth and productivity.
Which is right where it's at, which is right where we should be, right? The government works for us. We shouldn't be working to sustain the government.
The government creates nothing good and does nothing well. It builds a few aircraft carriers. It has some nuclear missiles that work, and so forth. It does the interstate highways. God bless them. Nobody else could do that. We need that. But the tax, the government, we pay in about 56 cents on a dollar of what the government spends, and they borrow all the rest. So not only are they not efficient, do they not create anything of value? A few things, don't want to say nothing. Few things.
Right, no, they do have a purpose. At a very basic level, their responsibility is national security, and they do some things very well, but I'm talking about the bureaucracy, I'm talking about, the IRS, the Treasury, some of these entities that are they're just a big churning machine.
Absolutely. And
print, spend, or in some cases, spend, then print.
Somebody is benefiting. Somebody's getting paid.
Now, lobbyists, that's an issue. Where do you stand on lobby and Congress? And, sometimes Congress members, they tend to seem to have individuals contributing to their campaigns that lobbyists or firms or people attached to firms. Where do you stand on the lobby?
Well, it's too much. Congressmen will tell you they spend 70% of their time on the phone, schmoozing, talking to lobbyists, worrying about the next election. And I liked Ron Paul. He said, for 30 years, I almost talked to no lobbyists. Now, there is a place for them because the lobbyists can actually come and propose good laws. Now, you have to work out what are they doing in their own best interest. But the government doesn't even have the resources to write good laws. They don't have the access to all the lawyers and so forth. So lobbyists, I've worked for large companies that said, here's a problem. I've worked it out. Here's a proposed bill. Now, look at the bill and maybe take out some of the things that are self-serving. So there's a place for lobbyists. The normal human being, right, the normal family person, they're just trying to pay their bills and feed their family and deal with all the health issues that are going. They're just trying to have a life. So there's a place for good lobbyists. Unfortunately, so much of them are working the system into a crony capitalism, and certainly the banking industry, which is completely dependent on federal regulation for even how a commercial bank works and is able to create money from nothing using fractional reserve lending practices and so forth. They're a complete animal of law. So they have tons of lawyers. So there's a balance, but we're way on the dark side of the force with lobbyists the way it is right now.
Right. So you're up for some reforms in how they operate with and interact with Congress. That sounds good.
I'm for the Citizens United decision. I don't think we should be telling anybody how to spend their money, and if they want to pursue something we are a country built on self-interest. We're pluralist. What's good for me is good for me, and what's good for me, hopefully uplifts all the society because we do well. So I have no problem with Citizens United and almost unlimited contract. I think the FEC limits right now, $27.50 per election. Oh, that's fine. But super PACs have a place. But what we need to do, though, is we need to make it so that people in Congress aren't spending 70% of their time talking to these people and trying to build a war chest for the next election, because that means they're not thinking about us. In fact, I like the Texas model where the legislature only meets for 5 or 6 weeks every 2 years.
Well, it used to be Congress was a part-time job. I mean, people had other work that they did. I mean, it's similar to baseball. It used to be, and didn't used to be year-round. They used to play part-time. I mean, I look at it as this. They're serving the people. Right now, I believe that we need to get things back on track. We have a lot of problems, and we need tough tough people who stand their ground like you in Congress to be able to help make those decisions and those calls and talk with the people that they serve and really work for a better process and system. So I am so grateful that you're running for United States Congress. Now, right now, I know we're coming to the end of the show. Could you tell people your name and really quickly where they can connect with you and learn more about your campaign and possibly contribute?
Yeah. So my name's Ron Cohen. I'm running for Congress in the California 17th Congressional District, which is the southeast side of the San Francisco Bay. My website is Ron Cohen, that's RONCOHEN, the number 4, Congress 2018.com. I have like 40 pages of discussion of various issues, and I will shock you to say I don't want any money. If you have money, send it to Diane Harkey down in the 49th district, because she's trying
in a tough fight.
Maintain Darrell Issa's seat, and if we lose Orange County, we've lost a lot. So send the money to Diane Harkey in the 49th California Congressional District. For me, my district is 25% Democrat wins in a generic race. I'm doing the best I can. I need $40,000 to do a mailer, and that doesn't look like it's coming. So we've got 2 debates lined up with Ro Khanna, the congressman. He has graciously provided that we're going to have 2 debates. The time and place is all on my website, and we're going to go at it conservative against liberal Democrat who says he's not but acts like a democratic socialist. And we're going to go at about the overall ideology in a respectful, calm manner, which is what you're
gonna be a conservative. You're going to come across as a conservative. I love it.
Conservative Trump supporter.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again, Ron, for being on the Erin Cruz Show, and Godspeed.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Absolutely.
To hear more and to learn more on how you can make an impact or about the Erin Cruz Show, visit us online at erincruz.com. That's ERINCRUZ.com.